Sira stood at the edge of the crystal grove and watched the stars burn above her home world. The forest moon of Velthora had been peaceful once, but now war came closer every day. Her silver hair moved in the gentle wind, while behind her the massive form of Ember lay coiled around ancient stones. The dragon was old beyond counting and had been her companion for more than 200 years. 17 years had passed since that night when everything changed. Sira remembered it like it was yesterday. The crash had lit up the violet sky like a falling star, and she had run toward. Against all common sense, the Council had ordered all her people to stay neutral in the galactic war, but Sira could not ignore someone in need. The escape pod had been smoking and damaged beyond repair. Inside was a human woman, barely alive. Her name was Kate Murphy, and she wore the uniform of the Terran Defense Force. Blood covered her face, and her breathing came in short, painful gasps. The consortium forces were searching the area and would kill any survivors they found. Sira had made a choice that night. She used the old magic that her people had forbidden. The ancient songs that could heal flesh and mend broken bones flowed from her lips while Ember stood guard. The dragon kept watch for 3 long nights, while Sira poured her energy into saving the dying human. Kate had whispered things in her fevered dreams. Mixed with promises, she spoke of gratitude and friendship and debts that must be repaid. Sira had thought they were just the words of a dying woman who feared she would never wake up, but Kate had survived, and when she was strong enough to travel, Sira had hidden her and helped her escape back to human space. The Elven Council had been furious. They said Sira had risked their neutrality and brought danger to their people. They warned that humans were dangerous and unpredictable, and that their promises meant nothing. But Sira had looked into Kate Murphy's eyes and seen something. True there now, the consortium had returned. Their world-eater ships consumed moon after moon, and their armies crushed all resistance. The elven fleets were scattered and weak. Their once proud civilization was dying, and the council that had demanded neutrality now begged for help that would not come. Ember rumbled deep in his chest. The sound vibrated through the ground and into Sira's bones. The dragon's golden eyes, fixed on something in the sky above ships, were breaking through the atmosphere and descending toward the grove. Sira's heart beat faster as she recognized the markings on the lead vessel. Terran symbols. Human ships, more than she could count, filled the sky above her home. The largest ship landed in the clearing with precision that spoke of military training, and the ramp lowered with a hiss of hydraulics. A woman walked down the ramp. She was older now, with lines on her face that had not been there 17 years ago. But Sira knew her immediately. Kate Murphy wore the deep blue uniform of an admiral now, with stars on her collar that showed her high rank. Behind her came more ships descending from orbit. Dozens of them, hundreds of them. Kate Murphy stopped a respectful distance away, and her voice carried clearly. Across the grove, Sira of House Velthara, I have come to repay an old debt, and I have brought friends. The sky continued to darken as more warships took position above Velthara. Each one carried weapons that Sira had only heard whispers about. The Terran siege cannons, technologies that made even the consortium fear humanity's growing military might. Sira stepped forward with Ember moving beside her like a shadow made of scales and flame. The dragon was larger than any of the human ships that had landed, and his presence made the human soldiers nervous, but Kate did not flinch. She had seen Ember before. Consortium fleet outnumbers yours 10 to 1, Sira said quietly. Why would your people risk this? Kate smiled, and there was something fierce in that expression, something that reminded Sira why humans had survived and thrived in a hostile galaxy despite being newcomers to the stars. Because someone once told me that debts matter. That honor is not just a word. She gestured to the massive fleet above, and because humans have very, very long memories, the dragon riders of Velthara emerged from the forest then. Hundreds of warriors on the backs of their bonded dragons. Their mounts sensed the change in the air, the shift from despair to something else, something that felt like hope. The consortium scouts had entered the system. Sira could feel them through her connection to Ember. They were coming with overwhelming force. They expected to find a broken people ready to surrender. They expected no resistance. Kate raised her hand, and signals went out across the entire Terran fleet. Sira felt the air itself seemed to hold its breath as massive amounts of energy began building in the siege cannons the humans had brought there. Most powerful weapons to Velthera, and they were preparing to use them. Let them come, Kate said quietly, and her voice carried absolute certainty. It is time they learned what silence sounds like. Sira looked at the human woman she had saved all those years ago. Kate had been a simple pilot, then injured and alone and far from home. She commanded an entire fleet and had brought the might of humanity to repay a debt that most would have forgotten. The elven warriors gathered around them there. Dragons took to the air in formations that had not been seen in decades, the old ways mixing with the new. Human technology and elven magic standing together against a common enemy. Ember spread his wings wide and roared a challenge that echoed across the moon. The sound carried power that made the very air tremble. Other dragons answered his call, their voices joining in a chorus that spoke of defiance and determination. The consortium fleet was getting closer now. They would arrive within hours. Expecting an easy victory, expecting to find the elves alone and defenseless. Instead, they would find something they had not anticipated. An alliance forged not from treaties or politics, but from something simpler and more powerful, one act of kindness. Repaid with loyalty that crossed the void between stars, Sira placed her hand on Kate's shoulder. The human woman looked up at her, and in that moment the bond between them was clear. Not just gratitude, but genuine friendship built on mutual respect. An understanding. Thank you, Sira, said simply for remembering. Kate's smile softened. We always remember our friends, and we really do not like bullies above them. The siege cannons continued their power, cycles building energy that would soon be unleashed. The consortium had grown comfortable in their dominance. They had forgotten that the galaxy still held those who would fight back. Those who refused to kneel. The dragon riders took their positions in the sky, while human crews prepared their weapons. Two civilizations that had barely known each other were now standing together against impossible odds. The consortium outnumbered them greatly and had crushed every other resistance. They had never faced humans before, had never encountered a species that placed such value on keeping their word, had never fought against enemies who understood that sometimes the right thing to do was help someone in need. Even when it cost you everything, Sira felt the weight of what was coming, the battle that would decide the fate of her people, but for the first time in years, she did not feel afraid. Kate Murphy had kept her promise. Humanity had come when called, and together they would show the consortium that some bonds could not be broken by any force. The first consortium ships appeared at the edge of the system. Their sensors would be detecting the Terran fleet now, would be realizing that something had changed. Let them see. Let them understand that the elves were not alone anymore. Ember's thoughts touched Sira's mind with warmth and confidence. The dragon had faith in this alliance. Faith that humans and elves together could accomplish what neither could alone. Kate opened communications to her fleet. All ships, prepare for engagement. Show them what happens when you threaten our friends. Stage was set, the players were in position, and the consortium was about to learn a very hard lesson about the price of bullying those who had allies with long memories and powerful weapons. Sira watched the stars and waited for the storm to break. The command center aboard the TCS Defiance hummed with controlled energy. Admiral Kate Murphy stood before the large holographic display, watching as red markers multiplied across the screen. Each marker represented an enemy ship, and there were far too many of them. Beside her, Sarah studied the tactical layout with ancient eyes that had witnessed countless battles. They are not even trying to hide their numbers, Commander, Lisa Hayes muttered from her position at the tactical station. 200 warships, and counting. Why would they? Sira's voice was soft, almost sad. They have crushed every opposition for 3 cycles. To them we are already defeated. Kate touched controls on the display in blue. Markers appeared showing the Terran fleet. They were positioned around Velthara's 3 moons, with careful precision that spoke of detailed planning. They were outnumbered badly, but position mattered more than numbers in modern warfare. They have never faced Terran siege doctrine, Kate said calmly. They do not know what they are looking. Eaton, the observation deck. Ember stretched his massive form. The Dragon's presence aboard a military warship was unprecedented, but Kate had insisted some debts went beyond standard protocol, and rules were meant to be broken when friendship demanded it abnormal. "We are receiving a transmission from the consortium flagship," Lieutenant Amy Foster announced. From the communications station, "They are demanding our immediate surrender." A face appeared. On the main screen, Walter, the Ruthless, was the supreme commander of the consortium's 7th Armada. His insect-like features arranged themselves into what might have been contempt among his species. His chitinous armor gleamed under the lights of his command. "Bridge-known vessels, you trespass in consortium space." Walter's voice clicked and hissed through the translator. "Withdraw immediately, or be destroyed along with the rebellion." Kate's expression did not change. "This is Admiral Kate Murphy, of the Terran Defense Coalition. We are not going any." Walter's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. "Terrans, the younglings who barely reached the stars, you dare challenge the consortium?" His eyes shifted to something off-screen. "I see you harbor the traitor Sira. Fitting that you will die together. There is something you should know about humans." Kate said with complete calm, "We remember our friends, and we really, really do not like bullies." She cut the transmission without waiting for a response. Lessa pulled up enemy fleet compositions on her display. "They are moving into attack formation, dreadnoughts in the center, hunter-killer packs on the flanks. Standard consortium doctrine. They will try to overwhelm us with firepower." Sira moved closer to the display, her fingers tracing invisible patterns in the air as she studied the enemy formation. There she pointed to gaps in the arrangement. "They leave their command ships exposed. They have always done this. Arrogance built into their very tactics. Then we will teach them about human ingenuity," Kate said. She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Murphy. Execute pattern Valkyrie siege cannons to full charge today." We show them why you do not mess with our friends. Throughout the fleet, the massive Terran siege cannons began their power cycles. The weapons were humanity's answer to a hostile galaxy. Not the most elegant solution, but devastatingly effective. Each cannon could punch through shields and armor with directed antimatter streams, but they required perfect coordination and precise timing. Sira felt the shift in energy, the way reality itself seemed to bend around the charging weapons. "Your people built these in just 2 decades. We are quick learners," Kate replied, "and we had good reason to advance our weapons technology. The galaxy is not as peaceful as we hoped when we first reached the star's embers." Rumble resonated through the deck, plating the dragons. Ancient instincts sensed the gathering power, recognizing it as something primal. Destruction given form and purpose, channeled through human engineering. Consortium fleet entering maximum range, Lisa announced. "They are launching first wave. Looks like 300 fighters and bombers." Kate watched the swarm approach. On the display, so many craft that they looked like a cloud of angry insects. The consortium's numerical advantage was crushing, and their tactics relied on overwhelming force. But numbers were not everything. "In war, hold position," Kate ordered. "Let them commit fully." The enemy fighters screamed toward the Terran defensive line with energy weapons. Already firing point defense systems activated, filling space with streams of interceptor fire, but the sheer volume of enemies meant some would inevitably get through. Shields began taking hits across the fleet siege. "Cannons at 90%, someone called out from the weapons control station. Kate's hand hovered over the firing control. Authorization timing was everything in this. The consortium dreadnoughts were moving forward now, confident in their overwhelming numerical superiority. They needed to come just a little bit closer to the optimal firing solution. Sira's hand touched Kate's shoulder. "I never thanked you properly for coming all this way." "Thank me when this is over," Kate replied, then into the fleet channel. "Oh." "All ships fire." The siege cannons spoke as one, and the universe itself seemed to pause in shock at the violence of their answer. 36 beams of concentrated antimatter converged on precisely calculated points across the consortium formation. The effect was immediate and devastating. 3 dreadnoughts simply ceased to exist. They were not damaged or destroyed. In the conventional sense, they were vaporized so completely that their destruction registered as brief flares on sensors. Before space folded back into the voids, they had left behind millions of tons of ship and crews simply unmade in an instant. Silence that followed was absolute. Every ship in both fleets seemed to hold perfectly still as the reality of what had just happened sank in. The Consortium had never faced weapons like this, had never encountered an enemy who could reach out across space and delete ships from existence with such casual precision, direct hits on all primary targets. Lisa reported, her voice carefully controlled despite the awe in her eyes. Enemy formation disrupted. They are stopping on the observation deck, Sira. Watched through the viewport as the Consortium Armada's confident advance faltered. Completely, ships that had been charging forward now drifted uncertainly as their commanders tried to process what they had just witnessed. Ember pressed against her side, and his ancient consciousness reached out to touch hers with a feeling she recognized. Satisfaction. Reload time for minutes, Kate announced calmly. Helm, execute drift pattern Delta. Make us hard to target. The Terran fleet began its intricate dance, each ship moving in seemingly random patterns that were actually precisely choreographed to make targeting solutions nearly impossible. The Consortium fighters, suddenly finding themselves without clear targets, broke formation in confusion. Their carefully planned attack run falling apart. Felter's face reappeared on the screen, and his composed demeanor was cracked. His mandibles trembled, and his eyes showed something the Consortium rarely displayed: fear. What weapon is this? It's called the siege cannon, Kate replied evenly, and you've got 4 minutes to withdraw your forces before we demonstrate it again. You think you can intimidate the Consortium with one attack? Walter's mandibles spread wide in rage. All ships full. Assault, destroy them. The enemy fleet surged forward like a tidal wave, hundreds of vessels unleashing everything they had. Energy weapons, missiles, kinetic projectiles, a storm of destruction that would have shattered any conventional defense and left nothing but debris. The sheer volume of fire was staggering, but the Terran line held. Their shields flickered and strained under the onslaught, but the defensive formations Kate had positioned absorbed and redirected the damage point defense. Systems worked overtime, intercepting missiles and destroying fighter shields. Holding at 70%, Lisa called out point defense handling most of the fighter waves. But we are taking damage, Sira. Moved to the tactical display, her elven senses reading patterns in the chaos that human technology could not quite capture. There she pointed to a cluster of support ships hanging back from the main engagement. Those vessels are coordinating their fleet movements. Without them, their attack becomes disorganized. Kate studied the position. Too many screening ships between us and them. We would take heavy losses trying to reach those targets. Not if you had a dragon, Sarah said quietly before Kate could respond. Ember moved.
Ow.
The ancient creature's form shimmered with power, and suddenly he was smaller, compact enough to fit in a fighter bay, but still radiating the same primal strength. His telepathic voice resonated through the minds of everyone aboard. The Defiance I will clear the path. Absolutely not, Sira said aloud. It is too dangerous even for you. You saved a human once because it was right. Ember's mental voice was calm. I do this for the same reason. For friends. Kate watched the exchange between elf and dragon, understanding what was being offered. The dragon was willing to risk everything to help win this battle, just as Sira had risked everything to save Kate all those years ago. If he is willing, Kate began carefully, we have assault shuttles designed for rapid insertion. With the right support. No, Sira's voice was steel. I will not risk him for 4 friends. Ember's tone carried what might have been amusement. The hatchling you saved grew up to bring an armada. The least I can do is breathe some fire. Siege cannons at 80% charge. The weapons officer announced. The Consortium fleet was closing fast. Their formation was ragged from the initial cannon strike, but they still had overwhelming numbers. The assault shuttle Aurora cut through the debris field. Like a knife through soft cloth, Sira sat in the co-pilot seat with her hands steady on the controls. Despite the chaos erupting all around them, metal fragments from destroyed ships bounced off their shields while energy weapons lit up the darkness. Lieutenant Amy Foster sat beside her, handling the weapon systems with practiced skill. 3 fighters on our tail, Amy reported without panic. Point defense is handling them, but we have a problem. That cruiser at Grid 7 is turning to intercept. December was compressed into his smaller form in the passenger bay, but his power still filled the space. The dragon rumbled a response that vibrated through the shuttle's entire frame. Sira felt his intention before he even acted, and knew what was coming. Hold on to something, she warned Amy. The pulse of ancient energy that short-circuited every electrical system within. 100 meters, except for the Aurora's specially shielded systems that had been designed to withstand such magic. The pursuing fighters went completely dark and tumbled away helplessly while the cruiser's weapon platforms sparked and died, leaving. "It blind what the hell was that?" Amy breathed, her eyes wide. Old Magic Sierra replied simply, "The kind your scientists cannot quite explain yet, but works very well aboard the Defiance." Kate watched the shuttle's progress on her tactical display. The main battle raged around her with the Consortium fleet in full assault mode. Now they were throwing absolutely everything at the Terran defensive line. Shields were failing on 2 frigates, and the destroyer Valiant had taken critical damage to its port. Sighed and was falling back, siege cannons recharged. Lisa announced from her station. Kate studied the battlefield with cold, tactical precision. The enemy had adjusted their tactics after the first devastating strikes. They were spreading out now to make the siege cannons less effective against multiple targets at once. Smart adaptation, but not smart enough to save them. Target the flanking destroyers. Kate ordered fire when ready. The cannons spoke again with their characteristic soundless flash. For more Consortium ships vanished in antimatter, fire simply ceasing to exist. The pattern was becoming clear now, and psychologically devastating. Every 4 minutes, the Terrans would reach out and delete part of the enemy fleet, surgical and inevitable. And absolutely terrifying, it was psychological warfare as much as actual combat. Every time those cannons fired, the Consortium forces flinched collectively, waiting to see who would be erased from existence next. The fear was spreading through their ranks faster than any weapon could in the shuttle. Sierra navigated through the increasingly dense field of Consortium ships. The coordination vessels were close now, their distinctive sensor arrays visible among the protective screen of fighters and corvettes surrounding them. 2 minutes to target, Amy reported, but that screen is very thick. Even with Ember's help, I do not see how we get through. A wing of elven fighters screamed past them suddenly, their graceful dragon-riding forms dancing between enemy fire with impossible agility. Sierra's heart leaped in her chest, the dragon riders of Velthora refusing to let her face this danger alone.
Nice.
They had come to help. The lead rider's voice crackled over the communication channel. "Sierra of House Velthora, did you think you would have all the glory? We have been fighting this war long before the Terrans arrived. It is time we reminded the Consortium what we can do." Commander Lyra. Sierra felt a genuine smile touch her lips for the first time in hours. "Your timing is perfect. We will clear the path for you." Lyra's voice was fierce. "You handle the coordination ships," and Sarah. Lyra's voice softened briefly. "Thank you for bringing them here, for giving us hope again." The elven fighters engaged the Consortium screen with breathtaking precision, their dragons breathing plasma and void fire that tore through enemy shields like paper. It was beautiful and terrible to watch the old ways of warfare meeting the new in a deadly symphony. The grace of dragons against the brutal efficiency of modern warships. "We are through," Amy said with relief in her voice, targeting the first coordination vessel now. Sierra placed her hand gently on the weapons console, stopping Amy. "Ember and I will handle this personally. Get us alongside that ship." Amy wanted to argue the tactical officer in her screamed that this was insane. But she had seen that look before in veteran soldiers. The look that said some things needed to be done face to face, some debts needed to be paid personally. The Aurora matched course with the first coordination ship, moving close enough that Sierra could see the hull plating. Sierra opened the side hatch with void shields, keeping the atmosphere contained. Ember expanded to his full majestic size in an instant, his massive form erupting from the shuttle like an unfolding nightmare made of scales and ancient fire. The dragon latched onto the Consortium vessel's hull with claws that could crush steel. His talons tore through armor plating as if it were thin fabric, while Sierra channeled energy through her hands. She was not using destructive magic, but something more precise and surgical. She found the ship's main power conduits through her connection to the ancient energies and systematically overloaded them one by one down. She reported calmly as the coordination ship went completely dark and began drifting. Moving to the next target back on the Defiance, Kate watched her tactical display as something remarkable began happening. The Consortium fleet's attacks became noticeably less coordinated. Within minutes, ships were firing on each other by mistake. Attack runs that fell apart, mid-execution formations that dissolved into chaos. Their command structure is collapsing, Lisa said. With deep satisfaction, whatever Sarah is doing out there, it is working. Beautifully, Admiral Communications called out. We are receiving surrender requests from 17 consortium vessels. They are breaking formation and requesting terms. Kate felt the shift in the battle's momentum like a physical thing. The consortium had superior numbers and firepower on paper, but they had never faced enemies who fought with this unusual combination of ancient magic and cutting-edge human technology. They had never encountered people who understood that war was as much about breaking morale and disrupting coordination as it was about pure firepower. Siege cannons ready for firing. The weapons officer announced. Skate held her fire this time. Let them see what restraint looked like. Let them understand that the Terrans could reach out and destroy any ship in the fleet. But we're choosing not to. Every 4 minutes they could unmake dozens of ships. That knowledge was itself a weapon more powerful than the cannons themselves. Velter appeared on the screen again. His chitinous armor was cracked now and green. Blood seeped from a wound above his eye cluster. His mandibles trembled with rage and something that looked like fear. This is not possible. You are just humans, just elves. We have conquered hundreds of worlds across the galaxy. Here is the thing about bullies, Kate replied calmly. We are used to picking on people who are alone and scared and helpless, but we are not alone anymore. And we are definitely not scared of you. Shay gestured to the tactical display showing the collapsing consortium formation. You have lost 6 command vessels. It's 23 capital ships and your fleet is falling apart. Meanwhile, I have enough antimatter loaded in these cannons to glass your remaining ships twice over. She leaned forward. So let me make this very simple. Withdraw now, or we will show you exactly what happens when you threaten our friends in space. Ember and Syrah finished disabling. The last coordination ship, the Dragon, spread his wings wide against the backdrop of distant stars. Backlit by the glow of burning ships, he was a silhouette of pure, primal power against the infinite void, a reminder that the universe still held ancient forces that technology could not match. Syrah climbed back into the shuttle, exhausted but satisfied. The old magic had taken its toll on her. But seeing the consortium fleet breaking apart made every bit of energy expenditure worth it. The silence that followed Kate's ultimatum was profound. It stretched across the battlefield as both fleets waited to see what would happen next. Would the consortium choose pride in certain destruction, or would they finally learn the lesson? Then slowly, almost reluctantly, the consortium fleet began to withdraw their ships, turned away from Velthora, and started jumping to hyperspace. One by one, Valter's flagship was among the last to leave, and his final transmission was just 3 words: "We will remember." Kate smiled grimly. Good, she replied. Remember this. Remember what happens when you pick on our friends. The last enemy ship vanished into hyperspace. The Terran fleet held position around Valthera. The siege cannons powered down, but remained ready. The crews stayed at battle stations because everyone knew this was just one victory. The war was far from over. But for today, they had won. Not through overwhelming force, but through friendship and courage and the willingness to stand together against impossible odds. Syrah guided the Aurora back toward the Defiance. She was tired and drained, but felt something she had not experienced in years. A genuine sense of hope that maybe, just maybe, her people would survive this war. After Alamber's thoughts touched her mind, warm with pride and satisfaction, they had faced the darkness together. Human and elf and dragon united against tyranny, and they had won. Kate watched the shuttle dock and felt the weight lift slightly from her shoulders. 17 years ago, an elf had saved her life. Today she had returned that favor with interest. But more than that, she had proven that humanity kept its promises. The day after the battle, Syrah walked through the medical bay aboard the Defiance. Human doctors moved between beds, treating wounded soldiers from both species. The battle had been won, but victory always came with a price. 12 Terran ships had been damaged, and 3 elven dragon riders would never fly again. Their sacrifice weighed heavily on everyone. Ember waited outside, too large to fit through the doorways, even in his compressed form. The dragon's presence was a comfort to the wounded. Though many of the human soldiers had never seen a real dragon before, and his majestic appearance gave them something to focus on besides their pain, Kate found Sira standing beside a bed where a young elven warrior lay recovering the rider's dragon. Had been killed in the battle, and the psychic wound of that loss was visible in her haunted eyes. Losing a bonded dragon was like losing half of your soul. Will heal, Sira said quietly, though her voice carried doubt. Physical wounds mend, but the bond. Kate nodded, understanding, even though she had never experienced such a connection herself. I am sorry for your losses. Every single one of them war always takes, Sira replied. We knew the price when we chose to fight, but your people paid it too. 3 ships destroyed, hundreds of lives lost defending a world that is not even yours. Kate was quiet for a moment watching doctors work. Then she spoke, because it is the right thing to do. We did not come here expecting gratitude or payment. We came because you needed help, and because 17 years ago, you showed me what real honor looks like. They walked together through the corridors of the massive warship. Crew members saluted Kate as she passed, and many of them nodded respectfully too. Sira as well, the elf, had become something of a legend aboard the fleet. The mysterious warrior who had charged into the enemy formation on a dragonin, the command center Lisa was coordinating repair efforts and managing the fleet. The tactical officer looked up as they entered. Admiral, we have completed damage assessments. Valiant will need major repairs, but she will fly again. The frigates Archer and Sentinel took heavy hits, but nothing critical. What about our people? Kate asked. Asket 43 dead. Another 100 wounded. Lisa's voice was professional, but her eyes showed the weight of those numbers. Every casualty report includes personal messages for families back home. Send them all, Kate ordered. And make sure every family knows they're loved. Ones died as heroes defending those who could not defend themselves. The Elven Council has requested a meeting. Era said they wish to discuss what comes next. The consortium will return eventually with larger fleets. They will not forget this defeat then. We need to be ready, Kate replied. Let them come next time. They will face an even stronger alliance. Over. The next few days, human engineers worked alongside elven technicians to repair damaged ships. The cultural exchange was fascinating to watch. Humans with their quick, efficient methods, and elves with their patient, precise craftsmanship learning from each other. Ember spent his time with the other dragons. The ancient creature teaching the younger ones about patience and strategy. The dragon riders listened to his wisdom with respect. Few dragons in the current generation had survived as many battles as Ember. Kate met with the Elven Council in the Crystal Grove where everything had started. The council members were old even by Elven standards. Their faces showed centuries of accumulated wisdom and also deep weariness from decades of losing ground to the consortium. Admiral Murphy, the head counselor, began. We owe you and your people a debt that can never be fully repaid. You came when no one else would. You fought when victory seemed impossible. Kate shook her head. No debt exists between friends. We came because Sira saved my life years ago, and because watching bullies crush peaceful civilizations is not something humanity can't ignore. But the counselor continued, your people lost lives and resources defending our world. How can we possibly by standing with us when we need you? Kate interrupted. The consortium is not just your enemy. They threaten everyone who values freedom. We stop them here, but they control vast territories. They will come at us again. Then we must be prepared. Sarah spoke up from her position beside Ember. The old ways of fighting alone are finished. We need a formal alliance, military coordination. Shared technology, combined fleets. The council members looked at each other with expressions that mixed hope and uncertainty. Alliances with humans were unprecedented. The elves had always kept to themselves, believing their ancient magic and long experience made them superior to younger species. That belief had nearly destroyed them. An alliance could work, one counselor said slowly. But it must be built on mutual respect, not dependency. We will not become a client state. No one is asking you. Kate assured them, we propose an equal partnership. You have magic and knowledge spanning millennia. We have technology and tactics you have never encountered. Together, we are stronger than either civilization alone. The negotiations continued for hours. Details about command structures, resource sharing, territorial rights, and mutual defense obligations. Kate proved to be as skilled at diplomacy as she was at military tactics. Her calm, reasonable approach won over even the most skeptical council members. By evening, they had reached an agreement, the Velthora Accords as they would be called. A formal military alliance between the Terran Defense Coalition and the elven worlds. This was just the beginning, though other species had been watching. The battle many had suffered under consortium oppression. News of the victory spread quickly through the sector. Races that had given up hope began reaching out, asking about joining the alliance, asking if humanity would help them. To Kate knew the TDC would need to make hard choices about where to commit forces. That night Kate and Sira stood together watching the three suns set over Velthera. The crystal grove hummed with its evening song, while Ember dozed nearby. The dragon's presence was comforting in its permanence. 17 years, Sarah said softly. That is how long it took for one act of kindness to change the course of history. Kate smiled. It was the right thing to do then, and this was the right thing to do now. That is all that matters in the end, but the consortium will come back. Sira's voice carried concern. They have resources we cannot match. If they commit their full strength, then we will face them together, Kate replied, and we will find other allies, other species, who are tired of being afraid. We will build something stronger than any empire, something built on choice rather than conquest. Sira looked at her human friend, really seeing her perhaps for the first time, not as the injured pilot she had saved, but as a leader who had transformed a personal debt into a galactic alliance. Kate Murphy had brought humanity to the stars not as conquerors but as protectors. Siege cannons, Sira said suddenly. Are they truly as powerful as they appeared in battle? More powerful? Actually, Kate admitted, we were holding back. We did not want to completely annihilate the consortium fleet. Just hurt them badly enough to make them leave the full potential of those weapons. Kate paused. Is something I hope we never have. To demonstrate, the evening grew darker and stars began appearing overhead. Some of those stars were consortium worlds, some were human colonies, some were elven settlements scattered across the sector. Each light represented lives and hopes and dreams. Worth protecting, Amy Foster approached with a datapad. Admiral, I have the casualty reports finalized and messages from the families of the fallen. They want to know when we are bringing their loved ones home soon, Kate promised. But first we honor them here. The elves have offered to hold a ceremony tomorrow, a joining of human and elven traditions. To remember those who fill it would mean a great deal to both peoples. Sira added, the beginning of true cultural exchange, not just military cooperation. The next morning, hundreds gathered in the Crystal Grove. Human soldiers in their dress uniforms stood beside elven warriors in ceremonial armor. Dragons perched on the ancient stones while Terran warships maintained honor guard positions overhead. Sarah spoke first in the ancient elven language. The words carried power and grief and hope. The crystals responded to her voice, creating harmonics that made the very air shimmer. Then Kate spoke in plain human terms about sacrifice and duty and the bonds that form between those who stand together against darkness. The ceremony lasted hours. Names were read aloud, both human and elven. Each life was honored individually, their stories told, their sacrifices remembered. The humans learned elven songs of mourning. The elves learned human military traditions, both cultures giving and receiving in equal measure. When it ended, Kate and Sira stood together before a new monument, crystal structure that held the names of all who had fallen engraved in both languages. It would stand here forever, a reminder that some causes were worth dying. For Ember spread his wings and roared a final salute to the fallen. The sound echoed across Velthora, carrying with it a promise that their deaths had not been in vain, that the alliance they had died to forge would endure. As the gathering dispersed, Kate received a message from Earth. The coalition leadership wanted a full briefing. They also wanted to discuss expanding the alliance, preparing for the inevitable consortium counterattack. And they had questions about how humanity should position itself in galactic politics. Big decisions ahead, Kate said to Sarah. Always, Sarah replied with a slight smile, but we will face them together. That is what allies do. They walked back toward the landing pad, where Kate's shuttle waited. The Admiral would return to Earth for consultations while the fleet remained at 3 months had passed since the battle at Velthera, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The news of humanity standing with the elves against the consortium spread like wildfire across countless worlds. Species that had lived in fear for generations began to hope again. Sira stood in the council chamber on the elven homeworld, watching representatives from 7 different civilizations negotiate terms of alliance. The chamber was ancient, built from living crystal. That resonated with the voices of all who spoke within it. Ember lay coiled outside, listening through their mental bond. Reptilian diplomat from the scaled worlds gestured emphatically. We suffered under consortium rule for 2 generations. They took our resources, enslaved our people, destroyed our culture. If humanity is truly willing to help us reclaim our freedom, then we will gladly join this alliance. A bird-like representative from the Sky Clans chirped in agreement. Our fleets are small, but our pilots are skilled. We can provide reconnaissance and rapid strike capabilities. Discussions continued for hours, each species bringing their own strengths to the table. Their own grievances against the consortium, their own hopes for a future free from oppression. Sira listened carefully, knowing that each commitment represented lives that would be risked in the battles to come. While was filled with representatives from every human colony world, their faces showed a mixture of pride, concern, and uncertainty about the path humanity was choosing. Admiral Murphy, a senior senator, began. Your actions at Valthera have committed humanity to a course that will define us for generations. Some say you exceeded your authority. Kate stood straight, her uniform crisp, her voice clear. I made a decision based on the principles humanity claims to value. We say we oppose tyranny, that we believe in freedom and dignity for all sentient beings. At Valthera, I had the chance to prove those are not just words, but the cost. Another representative interjected. We lost 3 ships, 43 lives, billions in resources, and now you propose expanding this alliance, committing even more force. Is the cost of doing nothing is higher, Kate replied. The consortium controls 1/3 of this sector. They grow stronger every year. Eventually they will come for human worlds, for our colonies, for Earth itself. Better to fight them now with allies than alone. Later a younger delegate stood. This alliance, you have forged it, includes species we barely know. Can we trust them? Can they trust us? Kate countered. We are the newcomers here, the youngest species too. Reach the stars, they are taking a massive risk, accepting us as equals, including us in their plans. We need to prove we are worthy of that trust. Debate continued long into the night. Eventually the assembly voted to support the expanded alliance. Resources would be allocated, new ships would be built, siege cannon production would increase. Humanity was committing fully to the fight against the consortium. Back at Velthoracero, received updates on military preparations. Human engineers were teaching elven technicians about siege cannon technology, while elven mages were showing humans how to enhance shield generators with ancient energy manipulation. The exchange of knowledge was transforming both civilizations. Commander Lyra landed in the Crystal Grove, her dragon settling beside Ember. The 2 ancient creatures touched noses in greeting while Lyra approached. Sira with a datapad. The integration training is progressing well, Lyra reported. Human pilots are learning to coordinate. With Dragon Riders, we ran a joint exercise yesterday. The results were impressive. Sira took the pad and reviewed the data. The combined tactics were indeed effective. Human precision and firepower, complementing elven mobility and magic, but something troubled her. What is wrong? Lyra asked, reading her friend's expression. The consortium has been too quiet, Sarah said. It has been 3 months since we defeated their 7th Armada. They should have responded by now, either with diplomacy or with greater force. Perhaps they are afraid, Lyra suggested. We did destroy a significant portion of their fleet. Consortium does not fear, Sira replied. They calculate, they plan. They are gathering strength for something big. Her concerns proved correct. 2 weeks later, long-range scouts detected massive consortium fleet movements. They were assembling an armada larger than anything seen in decades. Hundreds of warships, thousands of fighters, and something new that sensors could barely identify received. The intelligence report aboard the newly commissioned TCS Thunderchild, a siege cannon cruiser designed specifically for the new Alliance warfare. The ship was a hybrid of human and elven technology, representing the best of both civilizations. She called an emergency strategy session. Leaders from all allied species gathered via holographic communication to discuss the threat. They are bringing everything, Sira said, studying the tactical projections. This is not a punitive expedition, they mean to crush us completely. The scaled world's representative hissed with concern. Our combined fleets number less than 200 ships. They are bringing over 500. How can we possibly stand against such force? We do not fight them head-on, Kate replied. We use the tactics that worked at Velthera. Mobility, precision, coordination. We hit them where they are weak, avoid where they are strong. And we use the siege cannons to maximum psychological effect. But Admiral, the Sky Clan's representative, chirped, even with siege cannons, we cannot destroy 500 ships before they overwhelm us then. We do not try to destroy them all, Kate said. We break their command structure. Disrupt their coordination, force them to fight as individuals rather than a unified fleet. That is how smaller forces defeat larger ones throughout history. Syrah nodded agreement, and we used the terrain to our advantage. The Calvo system has asteroid fields, nebulae, gravitational anomalies. We choose the battlefield. Force them to fight on our terms. Over the next month, the Allied fleet prepared. The humans contributed 50 warships, including 10 siege cannon cruisers. The elves brought 80 dragon riders and 30 warships enhanced with ancient defensive magic. The other Allied species contributed what they could, every ship and pilot precious. Ember spent time with Kate explaining the ancient ways of warfare. The dragon's centuries of experience proving invaluable in planning strategy. His perspective helped the humans understand that battles were not just about technology, but about will and courage and the refusal to surrender. Consortium Armada arrived at the Calvo system 3 weeks later. Their formation was massive, disciplined, terrifying. Supreme Commander Valter led them personally, commanding from a super dreadnought that dwarfed anything the Allies possessed this time. Valter broadcast on all frequencies, there will be no mercy. You've defied the Consortium, embarrassed us before. The entire sector now, you will learn the price of that defiant surrender immediately, or be annihilated. Kate broadcast her response on the same frequencies. We are the free peoples of this sector, human, elven, and others who refuse to bow to tyranny. You want to destroy us? Then come and try. But know this, every time you hear the silence that follows our cannons firing, remember that you chose this. Battle that followed would be remembered for generations as the defining moment when the balance of power in the sector shifted forever. The Consortium fleet charged into the asteroid field, confident in their overwhelming numbers. Immediately running into prepared defensive positions, Allied ships used the asteroids for cover, appearing and disappearing in coordinated strike patterns. Dragon riders breathed fire and void energy, while human siege cannons fired with devastating precision. But the sheer numbers were overwhelming. The Consortium pressed forward, taking losses, but continuing to advance. Their strategy was simple. They would absorb the punishment and crush the Allies through pure mass gate. Watched the tactical display, knowing this was the critical moment. All siege cannons, she ordered. Target the super dreadnought, maximum power. Every siege cannon in the fleet fired simultaneously, more antimatter energy than had ever been concentrated in one attack. The beams converged on Valter's flagship. The shields held for 3 seconds, an eternity in combat time. Then they collapsed. The super dreadnought did not explode. It simply ceased to exist, along with Valter and his entire command staff. The silence that followed was total. The Consortium fleet stopped dead in space, their supreme commander gone, their flagship erased there, carefully planned assault, suddenly leaderless. Confusion spread through their ranks as subordinate commanders tried to take control, tried to reorganize strike. Now Kate ordered all Allied forces execute Plan Chaos. The Allied fleet erupted from hiding positions throughout the asteroid field, no longer defending but attacking with ferocious coordination. Ships that had seemed scattered revealed themselves as carefully positioned strike groups. They hit the disorganized Consortium forces from every angle. Dragon riders targeted communication arrays, while human warships disabled propulsion systems. The other Allied species contributed their unique capabilities, the Sky Clan's pilots flying impossible attack runs, the Scaled World's heavy ships providing anvil-like firepower. The Consortium fleet began breaking apart ships, retreating in different directions. Some tried to surrender, others fought desperately. And through it all, every 4 minutes, the siege cannon spoke again, each time targeting command vessels, each time creating that terrible silence before destruction. By the time the battle ended, the Consortium had lost over 300